Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, be Thursday.
Today would be Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. Well, we're supposed to be on Monday. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To remain standing, this past week we lost a valuable part of our community, a former selectman, Don Smith, a member of our personnel board, and I'd like to turn over to my colleague Alex, who would like to say some words about Don.
Well, I got to know Don Smith when I came here as fire chief, but Don was quite a citizen for this town. He served as selectman for 2 terms. He served on the Conservation Commission, and most notably, he served on the fire department. And for me, it was an honor to work with him. He was incredibly loyal to the town. He was incredibly loyal to the department, and he was incredibly loyal to me. Don was a soft-spoken gentleman, but make no mistake, he was not meek in any way, shape, or form. He was involved. He was one of my best advisors. Tell a very brief story about him. He once came to me and said, boy, because of our assignment and our duty as on the EMS division, we don't get to command incidents. And I said, well, maybe someday you will. And the day came in a big fire on Oak Hill, where acres and acres were burning, and I had to do a walk around, and I put Don in command, and he quietly thanked me for that, because he loved the department. He was a professional. He was a friend. He loved the town, and he was really a truly good person, and has done a lot for us, so I would like to honor him.
In silence. Thank you. Tonight's meeting was postponed from Monday due to snow. We seem to have lots of snow in the past and snow still coming. On the agenda tonight, at 6:35, talk about budgets, operating budget and capital improvement plan. 7 o'clock, we'll have input from public and members. 7:10, department updates, winter storm updates, emergency management, and snow and ice budget. Fire safety staffing for adequate fire emergency response grant application. 7:30, Park and Recreation Commission talking about the budget and what can be done. Let's see, 8 o'clock, annual and special town meeting warrants to set the dates for opening and closing. 8:10, Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator, Finance and Budget section, Housing Production Plan Update, and then B, MAPC, Technical Assistance, Open Space Recreation Plan, Green Communities, Housing Authority Collaboration. 8:30, around that time, of the business consent agenda, and then around 8:35, an executive session we'll be going into to talk about the value of land. Mr. Town Administrator, Mail.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of items that were in the packet. One is it's an invitation from Minuteman Senior Services to participate in their annual March for Meals. That is during the month of March. They invite guest deliverers of Meals on Wheels, and we're all invited to participate in that program if available. A couple of other items that came in since the packet went out last Friday for Monday. There was a letter that the Lieutenant Governor sent out to all municipal officials announcing some initiatives, including the establishment of the so-called Community Compact Cabinet by the Governor, which is chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, that there will be a statewide tour to meet with municipal officials, and we'll get some further details about that in the future. And then also on Tuesday night this week, the Financial Policies Working Group voted unanimously to recommend that policy document we've been working on for a blended community Preservation Act, so we'll be bringing that document for adoption by this board at a future meeting, by the Finance Committee as a whole and the Community Preservation Committee. And then once it's adopted, then we can go forward with developing the long-range blended CPA plan that will help us guide how we spend CPA dollars. So that, and also Warren Terrell brought by to show our tax dollars at work, a brochure from the Congregational Church, which included the progress that they've made with the preservation of stained glass windows. So
CPC money.
CPC money at work, you bet, historic preservation.
Correct.
That's it.
Selectmen.
Hello, Selectmen. Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Now we have a full board. Going into 2A, the budget. Bonnie, you want to, 2A and 2B, you can lead one into the other one.
Sure, that sounds good. We are starting to make some progress in getting some detailed information from the school department, and we much appreciate that from the superintendent Clenchey and the business manager Steve Mark. We did meet last Friday, and they did provide me with some hard copies of some documents that show the salary adjustments that were needed, plus the special ed costs. So we've been going through those over the last few days, and I'll probably have a more comprehensive update for the board at the next meeting. But we much appreciate the information coming out of the school department. It's been very helpful to back up the data. So at the time that I crafted this memo, we didn't have...
Have we said level staffing plans to have we sent that message to the school committee? That, you know, that the board is, I mean, we haven't taken a formal vote, but during our discussions with our department heads, we've been talking about level staffing.
That message was emailed to all of the departments. We will be able to call those numbers out. Whatever additional staffing increases are requested, they are apparent in the documents that they gave us. So it's a great set of documents to go through. So we're working on that this week. I should have more comprehensive information to break down the increases that are requested and why at the next meeting. At the time that I had crafted this, we didn't have those figures available. I did, however, put out the offer that we do still maintain the document that shows the total school spending. It's a historical document, so it goes backwards. It doesn't project future spending, but we can tell what the spending has been from 2008 to 2014 and 2015 to date. And I just put out to the board, we're happy to present that data. We had done it, I think, 2 years ago at the last time, so if it's something that the board wishes to see, you know, we can certainly schedule it for the next one. It's just helpful to see that the appropriation, the town appropriation, is just one component of the total spending plan for the school. And while the appropriation might be in the neighborhood of 17 million, the total spending is in the neighborhood of 20 million.
A little more than that, 20.5 million is closer.
Yeah. So I put that out as an offer, and we can certainly do that at the next meeting if that's...
I think that would be a great thing. Especially when you have the documents, curious to see what the school gave you in the documents recently.
I actually requested to get them in like a PDF format or some type of electronic format because they were given in hard copy. So I can scan them, but they don't scan very well. Right. So as soon as I get them, I'll forward them off. So then I guess on to the capital budget. We did send the information out to the departments, got some feedback on priority order, particularly from the school department. Cemetery had a couple of changes. So there were a few items that got shuffled around. And this is the redraft of the requests. Again, I tried to highlight the changes as Keith had asked me to. So I'll go through the undesignated funding sources for undesignated fund balances increased to $918,000. We can go up to about $970 and still be within the policy for what we can spend from undesignated. I started at $870 because that's kind of where we were last year. And I know that there's always things that tend to creep in at the last minute, so I hate to go out with a full amount in the first go-around. So it's increased here to 918,000. The 350 is still there as the short-term debt service relief that was reserved. And 682,000 is the same as the accumulated long-term debt service reductions. So we are still making the recommendation for the Finance Committee request that the 350,000 be earmarked for capital stabilization, so there's no changes there. There'd be no reduction proposed. We know that there are some large items coming up in future years to have that needed for. So based on the redraft, we have about 2.8 million in requests, but only 1.6 million available from the funding sources once I take that 350,000 out. We don't have any proposals for borrowing in this version. We don't have any proposals for capital exclusions, so this is all funded by cash. The primary reason for that is we do have some large items in outward years. We have a ladder truck coming up. We have the fire station discussion that still needs to be dealt with, so there are some big items. Borrowing would be short-sighted at this point. Community preservation funds, I had identified in the last version items that could be considered for community preservation funding. I think at this point, our recommendation was that none of those be funded at this time until the policy discussion has been had on, the future use of community preservation funds. What are the long-term goals of the town? And these items can wait until that discussion happens. I mean, if something were addressed over the next few months, we could certainly take this up in the fall if it were truly something that the board wanted to consider.
Some of them involve borrowing. We don't have a lot of cash reserves in any of the CPA fund balances, and the idea is to develop the long-range plan for what's our vision. What do we want to spend the money on? And if we simply say, because these are in line waiting for the money now, for as important as they may be to those asking for them, I think we need to wait. I think we need to develop a long-range plan.
Critical items on this
No.
list that, is gonna bring anything.
If it's a matter of, as Bonnie says, if we develop the plan between now and the fall town meeting, then we can at least make a judgment about, are these projects in the priority of how the plan envisions money to be spent. If they are, we can bring them forward. If they're not, then they would wait
That's right.
their turn, so.
So that's the status of community preservation funds. None of the projects in the plan are recommended for funding at this point. So to go through the changes in the draft. 350,000 again, capital stabilization. So of the 1.6 million that remains available for appropriation, no changes to the police department version that I presented at the last meeting. No changes to the fire department version that I presented at the last meeting. And no changes to the highway department from the last version. The schools, they just went in and reprioritized some of the projects, moved some in, moved some out. The net change was a $1,000 increase, but they pulled some things in, like the classroom life skills retrofit was put higher up on priority, the freezers. So again, it's a relatively small change, it's just priority order. Cemetery made mention that the 4,900 really needed to be addressed this fiscal year if it's going to be addressed, because he has a quote on a trade-in value for the old piece of equipment, which will decline if we delay it. And it is a smaller amount of funding. So I did add that in there. Under facilities, it's revised to 508,000 from the 468 originally. The facility study recommendations are unchanged. Modular building is unchanged. There is an addition, based on a discussion that was had with some board members of the Recreation Commission, for 50,000 in facility and equipment repair and maintenance. This is an increase from a $10,000 request that was made on the previous version of the plan. And this is to maintain primarily the facilities and the infrastructure that are non-revenue generating for this department. So, like Fay Park, there's no revenue that gets generated when, out of Fay Park use. However, the Recreation Commission is charged with the maintenance of Fay Park and any of the facility or equipment there. 300 King is another good example, any maintenance that might be needed there. And there are some beach expenses that, are not going to be offset by the revenue. So this is These are primarily for things that the town would be responsible for, even if all of the recreation programs did not exist. So we kind of took a look at it that way.
So what this, and I realize we're going to discuss this more later, but this is shifting normal operating expense into capital?
It's shifting it into capital in the same manner that we do for police, fire, and highway. The large equipment and facility maintenance accounts are funded in the capital plan, with the idea that if there were a problem in a given year, we'd have to put a stopgap. We would not, we could not do the repairs that we would normally program and do in these types of accounts. But they are funded in the same manner that those other departments are. So it seemed a reasonable.
You concerned that this is getting a little away from our policy that we're going to use, pay for reoccurring expenses that occur every year out of the capital money?
I'm not concerned in that it's consistent with what we do for other departments. I would be concerned if we were proposing something that were radically different than the other departments. And we do it, we do it for the school department, we do it for, like I said, highway, police, fire.
Examples being tires, same type of thing. You move that from operation to the maintenance and equipment expenses we do for all the machinery at the highway.
And what it does is it makes it, by putting it in that account, it can be only used for that. There can be no transfer of it to another, use. If electricity bills are high, you can't use it for that. It's only for maintenance and repair of equipment.
And if you don't need it all in one year, the article balance can carry over to the next year as well, just for that purpose.
And will we see what the 50,000 is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's primarily, like I said, Fay Park Beach, and they're going through their budget now after the discussion that we had. So.
We put the offer out there that if we could put a capital project in, what would tell us how you'd spend that money.
Yeah. I'm looking into that discussion later. There's more to talk about.
So that is the only repair, the only change there. And I did, again, identify some items that possibly could be funded in the fall. I really think that that's not going to happen this year. I don't think that we're going to have any significant snow and ice monies remaining. We'll take that item up.
You kidding me? Yeah.
It's amazing. But I did identify some items that maybe could be funded if there are any surplus or available revenues for one-time sources. And then we just updated the chart, so if there are any concerns or items that the board would prefer to see funded versus another one.
So we're looking at $900,000 cut out of the 2.8.
Yes.
When do,
The finance committee hasn't vetted this either.
well, they're looking for our direction.
Yes.
They
Yep.
want to hear, we've heard that many a time.
Yep.
So this prioritized list comes to
2.8 million.
Well, the-
2.851.
The total requests come to 2.851. The funding recommendation is $1,950,000. And of that $1,950,000, $350,000 is going into capital stabilization. So really, you're funding $1,600,000 in capital items.
And that doesn't mean to say we can't use some of that 350. I mean, that's a big number, and I understand that
Right.
we do have some big purchases, but, and taking a look at some of these issues in the list from the department heads, nothing really jumps out at me to say, why? From my perspective.
well, I think
Let's face it.
we're gonna have to put a limit in there somehow.
Oh, understood.
We're gonna have to come up with some kind of.
Understood. I
criteria.
think what the discussion should be is, number one, do we agree with the 350? That's a big chunk of change. If we cull that down to maybe 250,000 and we have another 100,000 out there, we look at the fire department for $550,000 for a replacement engine. Boy, if we could pay that with cash, that's an awesome thing, and, you know, that would be.
That was one of the things I was looking at, because that's one of the big ticket items that's in here. And and it's kind of an unfair discussion without the chief here, but maybe something like we put away half of it and fund the rest and do the project, put off the project a little while, but we fund half of it up front. We reserve half of it.
And my question about that is the, you know, the combination of these vehicle reduction and his plan about better use of vehicles. What impact does that have on the 550 with trade-ins? Is that considered in the 550, or is the 550 just a retail number, estimated bid amount? So.
We should talk with him. We shouldn't talk about this
No,
without
I
him sitting
understand that.
there.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. So that's some of the discussion I'd like to hear on that, but, you know, do we want to put 350 away? I think that's a
If we put
discussion
250
can have.
away and say, okay, let's look at this in the fall,
What, the 500?
for
I mean, for the
250 of the 550, tuck it away and say, that's reserved for the project.
For the engine replacement?
Yep.
My only concern is that there are some large items in the next fiscal year.
We're going to have to deal with them no matter what, Bonnie.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think
We'll
the
make
first
those
goal we have,
decisions when we look at that crystal ball next year and the year after, I think.
but I think the first goal is we have to get this number down to the number we need to get it to. And if we go over, then we're having exactly the same effect on next year as we would if we put something off.
Well, the funding recommendation in here now, that the $1.9 million, this can be supported. And the items that I have listed with the engine and everything can be supported with what I have crafted here.
So the 1.9 is everything that you've listed here? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, including the
My
550.
bad.
I already cut
Yeah,
from 2.8 to
including the
1.9.
No, including the 550 for the fire.
That's my bad.
Yep.
All right, I was assuming
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
we
Which
had.
also includes
we
the
had to-
350.
Which
Which also
includes the
includes the
350.
350.
Is she a miracle worker?
That's
or-
an easy one.
Yeah.
Done,
Fund something else, you can.
done.
Yeah.
My bad. Apologize for that.
Well, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, because it's, especially where it's like 1.2 million for starters on the ladder truck next year, it wouldn't hurt to have all of that 350 put aside
I'm
for
with
the
you.
future.
Right.
That's easy.
Yep.
Tell the finance committee. Should we
don't you take a
make a vote of confidence on that, on this list? I make a motion to support the list for capital projects as drafted in the memo of February 5th, 2015, from the Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director.
Second.
Moved in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Great,
Well done, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Now,
Bob.
operating budget, that'll be a piece of cake.
a little bit ahead of time, but
Keep it going, kid.
Could do, snow and ice
Yeah, might as well.
on a roll, that's a budget matter.
what number's that?
4A.
Oh, three, yeah.
We were going to give you a general update on the storm. The fire chief and the emergency management director is not here, but it is an opportunity, once again, to say what a fantastic job our employees do here in Littleton. The highway department, police and fire, and just a host of other folks, light and water. Just a tremendous job, how well they've served our community during now 3 major storms, Act 4 coming up this weekend, so.
All geared up for staff again for the weekend, so Saturday through Sunday. We're not in any blizzard warnings, however, we're expecting around a foot of snow, so in a short period, in a 24-hour period of time. Luckily, it's on a weekend, I guess,
Yeah.
with a holiday.
It's school
following
vacation
on
week,
Monday
so-
and
But it'll
school
take a
vacation.
week to recover from it.
It's school vacation next week, so Jimmy doesn't have to rush to get to the schools and things like that, but still, I don't know if you've looked at the back of the police station, but we're building Mount Everest out there.
Start a pool, when's it gonna melt?
I'm betting July about now. I can tell you, it's packed tight.
That will be interesting to see when it finally,
It's a little fundraiser for your dog program. Get that going.
That's not a bad
That
idea.
is a great idea. I'm in. So.
I do want to echo Keith's kudos.
I was
I
just
drive
gonna-
through 4 other towns every day, back and forth to work, and it's not a compare and contrast so much, but Littleton's better.
Yeah.
And our folks are doing a super job, so thank you to all.
I had a funny text from Jim Clyde Tuesday. I texted him and I asked if the transfer station was open. And he said, yeah. So I went down and he did my transfer dump run and came back. I had another text from Jim. He goes, isn't it funny? We can shut down the MBTA, but God forbid we shut down the transfer station. I had to chuckle at that one. It was pretty funny.
So there's a procedural vote that we do need to take, and it usually is an annual ritual to authorize incurring expenses in excess of appropriation for snow and ice removal. This year, we're going to need it for sure. As Bonnie will tell us, we typically have $650,000 available, 200 in an appropriation, 450 is a deficit that we would add on to the next year's tax rate. We're at the point now where we have already exceeded incurred expenses of over 200,000, so we need to be dipping into the deficit.
As Keith mentioned, we do budget in 2 different areas. We budget 200 by way of appropriation, and we reserve 450,000 as a deficit against next year's revenue. So it's not an additional amount that gets placed on the tax rate, it's budgeted against the regular available revenue for fiscal 2016. If we didn't spend it, then it's available for capital in the fall. I am not thinking that we'll have much available for capital at this point. As of today's date, when I ran the report upstairs, I have a deficit of $75,000, so we've incurred $275,000 in expenses. That was through last week, and it's not completely inclusive of all the expenses through last week. So we do not have this week's storms in that total. We are rapidly spending through it.
And Scott's filling out all the information for the federal reimbursement for the
Actually,
blizzard?
yeah, what we did is Kate Tachi in the Highway Department, I want to thank her, she does a tremendous job getting the FEMA paperwork done. So we funneled everything through the Fire Department, through the Highway Department. Everything has been submitted. We did the initial IDA, or initial damage assessment reports. They went in on time. We had about $70,000 on the town side and about $10,000 on light and water side. So those went in on time. We will tweak those numbers as we do the next set of reports, but they're in.
Good.
So how are we looking to handle the extra station coverage and extra police officers, all the extras that are not snow and ice removal?
If it was in the 24-hour or 48-hour period of time that was incurring the most expenses, they were eligible, all the overtime was eligible for reimbursement at 75%. So those costs are included in there, and so the fire department has included their overtime costs, and police too. Any straight time, that's, part of the department's operating budget. FEMA does not reimburse for that. So,
Well, it's pretty safe to assume that every storm now is going to cause the same reaction. We have to ramp up and get ready until we get rid of some of the snow.
and snow and ice expenses are very specific to snow and ice removal. So while FEMA might reimburse the fire department for extra shifts that they needed to have to cover emergency response, it doesn't come out of the snow and ice budget. It comes out of the fire department budget. So when that money comes back from FEMA, it will get credited back to offset their expenses. But it comes out of their budget.
So two things to add on to that. I guess after this next event, which is going to be this weekend and possibly even next Thursday, I just heard, do you do an assessment with the department heads as far as budget and where they're spending and how they're going?
We haven't had to do that since 2010. We will this year.
Okay.
Normally it's not an issue. We will have to this year.
Okay.
So Jimmy Clyde and I will have our morning coffee almost
Sure.
every day and kind of go through that budget.
Yeah. Just,
It's been a while since we had,
It was, I had to look it up, it was 2010 was the bad year.
yeah, that would be a good thing to do. And secondly, on that line, can we get an update of capital that we've done this fiscal year?
Sure.
Kind of give us a, maybe at our next meeting, give us an update as to what's been bought and how the spending's going, if there's been any savings or anything to that effect. Would be nice also. Wait for a motion then, Mr.
yes,
Chair?
please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 31D, to approve incurring expenses in excess of available appropriation for snow and ice removal for fiscal year 2015.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, 7 o'clock, public input, anyone in the public? Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you wait for public input after Parks and Recreation gets here?
You'll have an opportunity to speak then if you really. Okay, board members?
Nothing for me this week.
How about those Patriots? How about those Patriots?
It was you wearing the jersey that did it.
Congratulations to the New England Patriots for their 4th Super Bowl win. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. McCready?
Well, I was thinking that, the period of time for public input has sort of dropped off a little bit. We used to have regular participants, and people would come before the board and state whatever they needed to state and do things, and that sort of dropped off, and I'd like to encourage people to approach us when the time comes and speak to us about that. I think that's an important part of what we do. And I'd hate to see it drop off to the point where we're not getting any. And I'm sure that some people, that all the people in the town don't think we're doing absolutely everything perfect. I, for one, would like to hear from people. I'd like to see them in the audience. I'd like them to speak up and speak their mind and engage us. It shows that what we're doing is working.
Mr. Vella?
May I just say something that
Mr. Vella?
the only reason that
Mr. Vella?
Okay. I do have two things I'd like to say, and it's to set the record straight on two comments I made in our last meeting. First one deals with the Special Education Revolving Fund. I incorrectly stated that it was a change in law as to why we did some things differently last fiscal year. It's really a change in our recognition of some of the regulations, and based on guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and Department of Revenue and from Bonnie is the reason we made some of those changes. So as I said, I incorrectly said it was a change in legislation, and it was really a change in our interpretation of some of the regulations. The second is when we were doing the Act 3 entertainment license, I ended the comment with, I'd like to end the charade. And at least two people thought I was speaking about the fire department, and if two folks did, perhaps others, had nothing to do at all with the fire department. My comment about ending the charade is wholly on the permitting process in the state of Massachusetts, and what we have to put people through as the various regulatory bodies so that they can do business in town. So it had nothing to do with the fire department, and it had everything to do with the state of Massachusetts permitting process. So I hope that's all clear now.
Okay, moving on.
Well, obviously, you've had some public input.
Keith, on 4B, Fire Department grant application, he's withdrawn. The chief is-
Yes, yeah, the chief had, at our last meeting, had asked to put it on the agenda. Upon further research, he saw where he needed to wait and bring that forward in a future funding round. So we'll have it back perhaps next year.
We're way ahead.
No action. So we could open the warrant. Go to 6.
Item 6, open and closing town meeting warrants.
Yeah, this is a procedural vote. For the last several years, we've established the practice of closing the warrant for the annual town meeting and the special in May, 45 days prior to the date of town meeting. That seems to work well. We open it about a month before that, so this second, is this the second week now, or third, whenever it is in February, is typically when we open the warrant, and then we close it on 45 days prior to town meeting, which this year is Friday, March 20th. So it's the same schedule that we've been working with. The board would have 2 regular meetings prior to the close of the warrant to insert articles. One is a week from Monday. It's February 23rd, so we can, drafting the warrant, there are some, standard articles you could begin to put on. Then on March 9th, that's the last regular meeting you have prior to the close of the warrant on the 20th. Some years, if there are still some big items that need discussion, you've even scheduled special meetings that final week, which this year would be the week of March 16th. I don't know that we'll need to do that. We don't really have an unusual list of things to come forward yet. I do think, though, that we should try to have some quality time with the Finance Committee and the Community Preservation Committee and this board on the matter of whether there's any additional funds you want to put into the CPA fund while we still have the opportunity in the current fiscal year. And we've talked about the cell tower funds that could go in, that there's some affordable housing mitigation funds that are ready to be put in. But we'll, and we may or may not be ready to do that, but we ought to try to have some time for a discussion. So it's a procedural vote tonight to open the warrant.
But we could put a placeholder for that, so that,
Yeah, we could put a placeholder in to see, but the main thing that we learned from the fall town meeting is that we ought to go into town meeting with a united front between this board and the Community Preservation Committee. And my fear would be if we put a placeholder article in and didn't say specifically what we're trying to do, the policy that we've crafted sort of requires that we reach an agreement before you put it in the warrant, that's the safeguard, that if, to ensure that we agree that the purpose for which money goes in is the purpose that it comes out, or that the money that goes into the CPA fund can go in and you can leave it there. The housing funds, I think it's probably okay to put housing funds in and if they're available and leave them there until we have a project to spend it on. We may feel the same way about recreation funds or even open space.
even if we do the placeholder and say it doesn't go on town meeting floor unless we have an agreement. So,
That works too.
I mean.
That works too. Yeah, if we run out of time.
We want to,
Yeah.
I guess all I'm saying is that we want enough time to have a good dialogue.
Yes.
So that, so we accomplish exactly what you just spoke about, where everybody understands where everybody is, and it's a united, I don't want to say united front, but a common vision.
We will make sure we spend quality time on these matters.
So,
Before the motion then, Mr.
yeah, we
Chair?
need a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to open forthwith the warrants for Monday, May 4, 2015 annual and special town meetings, and to close them Friday, March 20, 2015 at noon.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Want to jump to the housing production plan?
We received the written approval of the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development last week for the housing production plan that this board and the planning board had unanimously approved back in December. So that's a great step. It's great to officially have a housing production plan in place. It's there for 5 years. It's good for 5 years, so it's sort of like an insurance policy. Should something bad happen that drops us below 10%. I can't predict what that would be, but I am happy to have the insurance policy in place. What I would like to be able to do, though, is now go ahead and spend some time going through the recommendations of the housing production plan and identifying which implementation steps we ought to bring forward on what time frame. And it seems to me the best way to do that would be to reconvene the Housing Committee that we'd worked with last year, which had included a member each from, or at least one member from this board, Planning Board, ZBA, Housing Authority, and as well as citizens at large, that since the two public forums that we had came out of the work of that committee, I think it would be appropriate to go back to them for further discussions and then bring back recommendations to this board and to the planning board largely. I'd like to, and I'll be talking with the planning board about it as well in due course, but I think it would be well to have, and with the Housing Authority for that matter. But there's a staff team that we have here now, myself and our planning administrator and the Housing Authority director, who I think could help, who could work with this Housing Committee to help carry the ball forward. That Myron has expressed a lot of interest in it. Lisa Larrabee, very good. We are very well served by having her at the Housing Authority, and I think that if the three of us could be, working with the Housing Committee, I think we could help to have some further discussions about what, to take this plan and to explore what particular implementation steps we could do next. Some of those things may even need to come to a town meeting warrant this fall, the spring or in the fall. One of the ideas was establishing an affordable housing trust fund, which many communities have. Boxborough has one. It's a state statute to adopt, to set one up. We may want to do that. There are some zoning amendments which the planning board will be discussing, which may be things we want to bring forward either now or later. But it's a good opportunity to look at the work and to see what proactive steps we can be taking to make sure that we remain masters of our 40B destiny and don't fall below 10%.
So we need to vote on this, right?
I just want to, the public hearings that were held for this planning, I wish was a little bit better received. They weren't big.
Yeah, not a lot of people.
Not a lot of
Yeah.
people. And it's a very important document. We've all lived 140B through 140B, and this is an integral part of keeping our head above water, so MAPC did a great job, too.
Right?
Yes. All right, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to task the Housing Committee to work with town staff on implementing the updated housing production plan approved by Littleton Planning Board, the Board of Selectmen, and the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development effective January 2015 through January 19, 2020.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Still. Moving right along.
Go team.
Next is an update on the status of some requests for technical assistance from our regional planning agency, MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And I'm happy to report that they are awarding a total of $15,000 to the town of Littleton for two initiatives that have been requested, as well as another $15,000 to help us in a regional project that we're the lead on, and I'll just talk briefly about them. The two local projects are to update Littleton's open space and recreation plan. This was a request from the Open Space and Recreation Plan Implementation Committee, who have been working without staff, without a lot of support. They've done a great job as far as they could go, but they needed further technical assistance. They specifically were looking for mapping help at a minimum. What they'll also have are some meeting facilitation services to have I should say the technical assistance comes in the form of MAPC staff assigned to work on projects. So so that there will be MAPC staff persons assigned for the two projects that are identified in Littleton to work with the open space plan group for one. And I should say that we're envisioning that would involve some, at least one public forum of the sort that we did with the housing production plan update, and hopefully with bigger turnout. But it would provide a framework, and I think this is very important, provide a framework to have discussion about what are our open space and recreation needs, and to make sure that those find their way into a policy document. So we'll have MAPC staff there to facilitate that meeting. They'll do the write-ups afterwards. They'll bring the reports to their final completed form. Our target is to have something done by later this year. The open space plan has a shelf life of 5 years. Ours expired in 2014. We need to get it renewed in order to be eligible to apply for open space and recreation grant funding from the state. So we'll be working with MAPC on a scope of services and bring it forward to this board for approval. The other local project was requested by the Sustainability Committee, who expressed interest in exploring putting together for the board's consideration an application to be certified as a green communities under the Green Communities Act. If we qualify, or if we became certified as a green community, we would, under the formula, we would receive $140,000 in state funding to do energy-efficient projects. And one of the ones that we talked about here, and that Melissa had asked about specifically, was LED streetlights. That at a minimum, that's the sort of project that we would be able to do with the funding. MAPC right now is working with Boxborough and has worked with a number of communities to help prepare them for green community certification. I'd approached the Littleton Electric Department to see whether they might be able to have the staff capacity to help us. They indicated that they did not. However, they were currently working with Boxborough to do the same sorts of things, to put together the energy information that's needed, to help them with their energy reduction plan. And our electric department is happy to work with our consultant, and I left it with Scott Edwards that I'd go out and try to find someone to help us on the project, with the understanding that his folks would be glad to participate in it. So it's not anything that we could undertake on our own without outside assistance, so I'm happy to that MAPC was able to find a $5,000 grant from one of their energy sources to pay for that. The third grant or technical assistance that's provided is $15,000 to fund a multi-town effort that we've led, that Littleton has led, to explore ways in which housing authorities in their host communities can better collaborate. And while there's still a lot of work to be done on that, I've been pleased to see the participation from our own housing authority, from the towns and housing authorities in Westford and Acton, Hudson, a number of our neighboring communities. So it's not about regionalizing housing authority. It's about, much as the way that municipalities enter into municipal agreements with our neighbors as fellow sovereign entities, to just see what can we do better together, whether collective purchasing or to have one responsible for doing something for the group, and also to see what, if there's a model of what services can towns be providing as the host for their housing authority, as a host community for their housing authority, as well as, in some cases, what services can housing authorities be selling back to their town. I mean, I realize Lisa is booked. We're working 2 half-time positions as housing authority director in Littleton and Groton, but we now have a housing authority director who has the caliber to be providing us with services, and she's expressed interest in and having her agency be the monitoring agent for some of the units, affordable units that we create. Delighted to explore those opportunities. It's great, it's great. So there's no action tonight. The ideas we'll be bringing back the scopes of services on the projects after we've worked with the MAPC staff and the affected boards, but I did want to report in with this progress. And the reason why there was a delay, that they had put out a request for proposals back in November, but because there was a fear that the mid-year budget cuts at the state level might eviscerate the funding source, which is the District Local Technical Assistance Program. Once Governor Baker announced his so-called Section 9C cuts a week or so ago, and we saw that the DLTA program was left intact, MAPC went ahead and made many of its awards, and we did pretty well, I think. We did pretty well for the fact that we've gotten a lot of awards in recent years, and I get reminded all the time about how many Littleton gets, and we get a lot more than other communities do, so.
Awesome.
But we ask more, too.
That's a big key, right? to ask
It is.
for?
And right to acknowledge that a lot of it's due to the hustle of Keith and the staff is the reason.
Well done.
That disproportionate number of awards are coming our way, so well done, folks.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We still, I guess, do minutes.
Any comments there? Move to approve the meeting minutes from Board of Selectmen, January 29th, 2015.
Second?
Moved and second to approve the minutes of January 29th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Oh, we blew through that mail packet. We just have to wait for the Park and Rec and executive session after that.
We do an executive session now?
How can you do it with 4 minutes?
Oh, what, they on, I thought they
Yeah,
were
they're
on at
here.
7:50.
Might be a short one.
Here at
7:30, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 7:30.
Oh, I thought it was 7:50.
Eh,
I didn't have my glasses on.
Well, with any luck, we'll be home at 7:50.
Maybe a 4-minute executive session?
I apologize there, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was 7:50.
We could get into executive session and get out of executive session in 4 minutes, but that's about it. Very little discussion.
So,
Maybe we're going to be in
so the public
recess.
knows we're in a small recess until the Park and Rec gets here.
My favorite subject.
Recess?
Getting it all done tonight?
Yeah, nice to have you drop through.
Busy night.
Did you see it? Okay.
He was on TV, too, that was good. Yeah, I got some driveways that I can't, I'm at the point now that the garage is right there, I can,
Just give me a call. I'm by and
it's nice seeing you, yeah.
Just take a look. Go through that door and take a look.
I don't want to go in there. Do you guys know who's in there?
Who isn't
A
it?
lot of people.
It's the planning board. It's a scary
Hang
one.
on, you guys know
Yeah, sure. Just grab a chair, we have a big crowd here.
what?
Grab a chair, we have a big crowd here.
I want to go see.
Well, actually, if it's okay with you, I might give your name and number out to people, because I've reached the point now.
I'll
that-
do what I can. I mean, you know, we're on a whole, you know, like this, my tractor wasn't running because of being a starter, but on the weekend, I can do something. I don't feel bad about.
No travels there, Mr. Ravello?
Only two people?
No, I was supposed to be in Missouri this week, Tuesday morning. Little issue of snow. It was 70 degrees there,
Really? Where?
Missouri.
How can it be so warm there and so cold here?
Where?
Missouri.
70?
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe we can get that jet stream to shift just a little bit east.
It's to shift a little west and
Tiny
south,
bit.
a little further east, a little north, one direction or another.
You know what's really gonna hurt is if we have a rainstorm.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
None of the snow is melted. It's just,
Don't think that.
We've been so lucky to have all this powder. I mean, to think, we shoveled 6 feet of powder.
Imagine Buffalo, 6 feet in one storm.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We're not that far
they
off.
have a whole,
No, but yeah, we're
6 weeks.
3 weeks, 4 weeks, what is
It's
it?
not even
they're
4
probably
weeks.
looking at us and going, what is their problem with the little snowstorm?
My son moved to Oregon January 9th, so we had no snow on the ground, so what's that? That's,
I don't think we
2,
started,
3, 4.
wasn't it like the 26th when we started?
6 feet, 4.5 weeks.
Well, all this was inside roughly 2 weeks when it all fell.
Right.
Did you see what Jimmy Glad came in with today? The cardboard cutout?
No.
Oh, my God, he made a cardboard cutout of the window that he crawled out of and showed us the open.
That's funny.
Crawled out of it. I said, we're gonna have ring toss for Jimmy,
That's great.
I pulled up next to him while he was in there. He loves to drive that little thing.
Oh, he does.
And I said, "Oh, is this the one that was in the crash?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "Geez, it doesn't look too bad." He goes, "Yeah, you try crawling through this window, though."
It's like a little, it was funny.
I think the Park and Rec forgot about us.
Let's hope not.
Have we had any building collapses yet?
No. No, and all the roofs have been checked and cleared. Yeah.
After the first storm, we cleared some of the school
Sorry,
buildings, so it
our
wasn't
conference room
cumulative.
clock says 7:25.
Oh,
And we're way ahead of time. We're just
Yeah,
waiting for
we're-
you guys to show up.
See, 7:30, right on the dot.
very good.
So you're all set now, Fred? We can get going?
Yeah.
To start this off, when we met before, I think the feeling of this board, and everyone can speak for themselves, but no one wanted to see any kind of cuts or programs cut out in the Park or Rec. I think that was the feeling of everyone. And I think with at my request, we had a meeting with the chairs and the vice chairs of the Park and Rec Commission and our board, along with Bonnie and Keith, to try to solve a problem that existed. And we had a great discussion. A lot of things were discussed. And part of this has already been talked about before you got here, when we talked about the different things that, if there were no Park and Rec, we'd still have to take care of Fay Park, we'd still have to take care of beach and things like that. So from our end, we thought taking some of the capital problems away from you and putting $50,000 in that way is a start to the solution and probably something from your side. So I think that's where we left it, Fred. Is that about
Yeah.
right? And so from this point on, during that discussion, I think we probably have a solution. I don't know whether you've talked and taken the vote with your commission or not, or what?
In terms of,
Closing the gap?
Yeah.
no, I mean, what would we be voting on?
Right. How you gonna close the $50,000 gap?
The remaining.
Well, we actually didn't vote. We were in there discussing it tonight because we wanted to confirm that the capital portion of it was
Gotcha.
gonna
Yes.
fly.
We voted,
Yeah.
the board voted
Right.
to put 50,000 in for capital.
Okay, and some of the discussion we had tonight, and I don't want to speak just for them if they have anything to chime in, was that, one, there was a shortfall in field maintenance fees, which we will then attempt to recoup from the sports leagues. We've got some overhead for managing the sports leagues that we're going to try and cover in additional fees on that end of it. We've got to work the numbers to see where we are on that. And then, regardless, there's going to have to be some programming cuts, not necessarily extensive, but probably some of and I just want to touch base because we keep getting accused of only throwing out the more sympathetic programs that we talk about cutting, but we've got, I think, 7 programs. The beach, driver ed, the camps, community and adult education, our special events, and youth services, after-school programs, and youth sports leagues. And I think we've discussed, the only ones we really haven't discussed at eliminating or cutting or moving off to themselves are the after-school programs. We've decided that that's something that we're going to stay with. Obviously, we're going to keep the camps. We have looked at eliminating, either trying to transfer to Acton-Boxborough, perhaps, or just eliminating the driver ed program. And that'll free up not only the costs inherent in that program itself, but the overhead that was spent trying to manage it from the director's standpoint. So there's going to be some savings on that end. And some of our special events and the free programs that we run just are too expensive. We won't necessarily be able to cover those. There's a lot of manpower involved. The Holiday Helpers program, and I'm not bringing that up because that's what we're going to cut, but that one, it takes an enormous amount of time, and there's no revenue from it, and it's just something that maybe we can get, some other aspect of the community can pick that up and cover that in the future. Third Thursdays, movies at the beach, those sort of things. But again, now that we've got a number from you all, we can sit down and run some other numbers and figure out where we're going to go.
So I guess my question too is, as we move forward, is this a systemic issue that we're gonna have to deal with each year? I guess would be something that I'd ask you guys to take a look at too, moving forward. Now, we've talked about the sustaining that capital year to year to year to year, so that's something we don't have to worry about. But the other funds, the shortfall, how's that impacted in fiscal year 17, 18, and moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think we discussed this, and my recollection may be different from what Bonnie's was, but in terms of like, the appropriation would be adjusted annually to cover step increases or however.
Yeah, we talked about, currently there is a $102,000 appropriation, general fund subsidy. That generally covers the full director salary and benefits associated with it. It's been sliced and diced 9 different ways to Sunday in previous years, but that's basically what that amount covers. So going forward, we could keep that amount tied to director salary, director benefits, and then all of the other salary and benefits need to be program-driven and covered under the program revenues.
And based on that, I mean, does the town of Littleton need a $102,000 director? And, that's a question that I would ask too, with benefits and salaries.
But did you say that's the total package,
That's
102?
the total
That's not
compensation,
salary.
it's fringe and salary.
Right, fringe and salary,
Yeah.
102,000.
And your rule of thumb is roughly 35% of salary?
Yes.
So to put in context as to what the salary is versus the fringe. Because 102 sounds like, what we say the director's salary is 102,
Well,
that's not the
it's
case.
a cost to the town, is
Yeah,
102,000.
but then every single one of our employees is a cost larger than their salary.
Sure.
So that way we're not singling out any
Gotcha.
particular employee.
Just where you were mentioning the different cuts, just.
Yeah, no, I think
something to
that-
think about, that's all I'm
We
saying.
have discussed what the job description for the director is, but I think the idea in my conversations that we had last weekend with Bonnie was that 102,000 appropriation would be used towards salaries in the department, not necessarily just one person.
Okay.
And how far along are you guys on working on the new job description?
Well, we aren't because we wanted to see what was going to happen here.
Okay, got it.
And I know that eliminating driver's ed is probably have a significant impact on the grading of it, so.
When you talked about eliminating driver's ed, wasn't that program fully funded in every aspect but the director?
It does, but it takes a significant amount of overhead, and it goes up and down in terms of, yes, it's profitable this quarter, it's not profitable that quarter. The expenses went up again once they got put on Schedule A. So it's something, and it's a liability that we maintain. Apparently, once somebody takes the course, they've got 2 years to complete their driving. So you've got that liability hanging out there for 2 years if somebody, like my son, for example, doesn't do their driving ever. But it's something, so if we close the program today, we theoretically would have $15,000 in liability from kids who haven't completed their driving yet. So it's something that would be nice to get out of our hair.
Is it something that's amply supplied in the private sector?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we did it was a service, and we were able to price it a little lower when the pay scale was lower and provide service to the town, and at this point, we've probably outgrown it.
So it sounds, if I'm understanding correctly, it is a net loss to the town when everything's factored in, and it's amply served in the private sector, and it's your collective wisdom at this point, like maybe we no longer need it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, I know there was a lot of tension in the air at our last selectmen meeting. I think our meeting that we had was very open, and I thought it was fantastic to sit down and, just have some brainstorming and see what's going on, and, I think we can move through this and work through it, so.
Yeah, great job. And as you guys take a look at what programs to kind of reduce or whatnot, do we still have an open dialogue about that? Like to keep, I got my eye on Long Lake. I'd like to know kind of what's gonna happen.
Come to our meeting.
Okay, all right, is that how?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we work through this more, we will have, our original intention was to have a meeting before this meeting where we would open it up to, here's what we've got to cut and get public input. Then once we decided to table that for this evening, and we'll do that in the future and look at some of the things. And maybe we'll get some ideas from people on some additional programs that might be worthwhile, so. Great.
Well, I think, the dialogue we're having back and forth on this is great, but in the end, which programs, that's not our responsibility, it's what you're elected to do. And, but I'm pretty encouraged that we've found a way to get this done. None of it's comfortable, but we can do it.
So your timetable from here would be, at some point, there would be a request with a new job description to fill a director vacancy, I'm presuming. So do we think that might be a month from now, or our next meeting is a week from Monday, and I suspect that would be too soon for you to come back.
Well, I think we need to go through, come up with the job description, and then get it approved by personnel,
Yes,
and see where that
that's the next
falls.
step there.
And
And then come back here, so that will be sometime in the next month.
Yep.
Whenever you're ready.
Hopefully, yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Right.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Personnel board would be next Thursday, and then 2 weeks after that.
I think we're probably talking in March.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm sure we could meet, call a meeting when you're ready.
Just want to see, make sure I understand the numbers. It was, in round numbers, $100,000 shortfall prior to some of these meetings. With our action tonight, $50,000 in capital, now that's $50,000 remaining, and you're going to achieve that through cuts of some sort?
Amongst other things.
Amongst
We're
other
gonna-
things, yes.
Yeah, amongst recouping some of the field maintenance fees.
Okay, so it's not necessarily all cuts?
No.
Could be.
No, it's a global approach,
Oh,
look at
super, thank
everything,
you.
a little bit of
Yeah,
everything.
That's great, yeah, it's a $100,000 problem. We've addressed half of that. The other half is yours under our tentative framework.
Right.
If you can achieve it through increasing your revenues and decreasing costs, we're hoping.
Decreasing
we're
programs,
hoping.
we're
Still
decreasing
looking at
programs.
30,000 short, doing rough numbers. Something's gonna have to go.
I just certainly personally understand that. It's good news out of it, as bad as all of it is. It's not a complete $50,000 cut in program services, whatever.
It's not all
something
cuts.
Right.
So as you said, a global approach to it.
Right.
As to how you
Yeah.
can achieve that. Okay, thank you.
Anything else for now?
If I may,
If you can identify yourself too.
yes, my name is Virginia Bennett, and I lived here for about 2.5 years in Littleton. And I just wanted to say, maybe this is not the appropriate place, but I'll be very brief. I just was reading the Littleton Independent, and there's a huge picture of Long Lake on there saying that this may go away. And so I think the best thing going in the town of Littleton is the beach at Long Lake, and I mean that sincerely. As a senior person, I swim at Long Lake every single day that I can from May till October, whether it's raining or not, for health reasons, for exercise reasons. And my orthopedic surgeon had recommended surgery for torn tendons, and I put together a program with the lifeguards at the beach, so I do a certain stroke. And anyway, long story, that 2 years later, I don't need that surgery anymore because I have now figured out by going and swimming every single day at Long Lake and doing a certain stroke, I've built up the muscles and I don't have the surgery because of Long Lake. I think I kind of understand what you're saying about salaries and deficits, and this is the first time I've been exposed to that. But please put it out there to all of us people who love that lake. I mean, I go down there. Okay, if you for some reason took away, you know how you have to pay? You've got to buy the sticker. Well, for me, I'm a senior. It's $32. I pay $100. Easy to go down there. You don't have to give me a reduction if you're going to close it. The other thing is if for some reason stickers went away, there's not much parking there. So what would happen if you didn't need a sticker, that place would fill up so fast that people like me that have a sticker couldn't find a parking place. Do you know what I mean? There are the streets are so narrow, there are very few parking places, and thank God that we have to have stickers, because everybody in the world would go there, and I really would not be able to find a parking place there. So if there's anything I can say to that, and also it's a beautiful place. I walk myself, I walk my dog, I sit there and I have a journal of watercolors. I can tell you, I spend 5 or 6 hours a day down there during the summer as a senior. And as a senior, I'm on Social Security, and there's not a lot else I can do. This is the only free, well, $32 for a sticker is the cheapest thing in the world. And I just want to say, it is the most important thing in the town of Littleton to me. And if I didn't have it, I would be having an operation. I would be very depressed. I'd be crying right now. I mean, I really want to say, I understand that you have to cut things, but please, you know, if you have to cut programs at the beach, just make sure that people can still use it and that we can still park there. You know, like you said, there are events that maybe could go that, you know, that you don't need to have every year. But when I see those kids and those mothers, and like I say, I'm there on the beach, reading a book in the sun, and I'm watching the mothers and the kids, and it is the most joyful thing in the town. I'm serious. In the town of Littleton, for an old lady like me to go down and watch these little kids having so much fun. I take my sketchbook, and it is my life all summer. So please don't cut off the beach. And those lifeguards, those kids are great. And the way it's set up, I mean, I've lived in other places. I've gone to Lost Lake in Groton. You're 10 times better than what they've got. They've got a nice beach there, but what you've got going now, like I say, and because you are space restricted, it's not like you can, you know, anybody can come down. It's got to be set up so that the residents can use it. And I just want to tell you, I mean, I said I was going to be brief and I'm not, but it is the most important thing in my life for the whole summer, and it has made the difference in my health. I mean, the difference between my orthopedic surgeon saying, you know, you got to get those things fixed, and then figuring out how I was able to do it myself so that I do not have to have surgery and enjoy it. It's so beautiful down there. If you don't use it, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if your wife or your kids or anybody you know uses it, ask them. And if they take their little kids and the lessons, like you said, increase revenues, increase your lessons. You can take a kayak out for $7 an hour. $7 an hour, you can charge $20 an hour. I mean, if that's what you had to do. I do that. I use the kayaks too. I mean, I just think it's wonderful. So if I may just say, please, cut what you have to cut, but don't cut the beach. Because a lot of people use it. The kids, the babies, to the old folks like me, it's my whole life during the summer, and I love it. I would miss it horribly, and I'd be willing to pay more. Take note of that.
Yeah.
I would be willing to pay
That they
more.
wrote down.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for the sun and the
Okay.
beach thoughts, because
Yeah.
we appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, I was thinking about that.
It's worth living for, living through this winter.
So I think we're all set for now.
That's it. Follow that.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
See you again. Thank you.
I know, right? I'm like, she needs to be in our board of directors.
You set that up, didn't you?
I've never met someone as passionate as me about that lake.
It's actually nice to hear that people enjoy it that much.
Exactly,
Yeah,
I
it's-
love it.
It's something that a lot of us overlook, it's a nice lake, but don't get the enjoyment out of it.
Man, I'm there almost every
After the
single day.
last couple of
I'm
weeks,
obsessed with
I
it.
wouldn't mind sitting on the beach reading a book,
Wow. I think we'll all appreciate Long Lake after this winter.
Yeah.
watching the grandkids swim.
Okay, the only thing we have left is executive session.
All right, move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 21A, Clause 6, to go into an executive session to consider the value of real property, since an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the board's negotiating position relative to the property at 511 Goldsmith Street, and not to convene into open session thereafter.
Second.
Moved in second, and it'll be a roll call. Selectman Hebert?
Aye.
Cop? Aye. Curry?
Aye.
Abel?
Aye.
Knox? Aye. Thank you very much for watching.